Disclaimer: the information contained within this podcast can change, and all those interested in GSA programs should reference the information at www.gsa.gov for the most up-to-date and accurate information. Shaun Hartman's appearance does not constitute an endorsement of GovCon services by GSA.
My name is Shaun Hartman. I'm the Regional Customer Service Director for GSA. I handle Space Coast area, pretty much from Palm Beach, north of NASA and Titusville area, Cape Canaveral, Kennedy Space Center. I work as the customer accounts and stakeholder engagement face for GSA. I'm stationed at Patrick Air Force Base, part of the 45th Contracting Squadron, and I'm responsible for all Department of Defense, federal employees and accounts, as well as NASA and state and local agencies like the county or city for purchasing and making sure that we're linking up customers with vendors for appropriate solutions. So that's really my job is continuing to support the customers and the vendors as a liaison.
Okay, before we got started, you were telling me about 2 years ago that OMB said some sort of put a process in place to try and reach out to more people using GSA. Can you just kind of brief over that really quickly?
Sure. So the customer service director position, it's not necessarily a new position or some sort of, fix all. Really what it is they've taken a look at what GSA's purpose was as the federal procurement arm of the government, right? So that was our purpose. President Truman enacted GSA as the federal procurement arm of the government, and it seemed more and more that was slipping away. And what people knew about GSA wasn't always in line with what our capabilities were. So a few years ago, they decided to start pushing more into growth, development of solutions, and creating faces for GSA, because nobody ever really associated people with GSA. It was just this big organization that you bought supplies from, or got your government vehicles on contract. And now, with the creation of customer service director, that's really, or with the improvement of the customer service director and getting out and meeting people and shaking hands and answering questions and being a direct point of contact, we're able to improve the use of GSA in which it was originally intended.
Okay, no, I think that's a great answer. Now, how would you describe, and again, one of the things that we discussed earlier was, this is probably something that I receive on a weekly basis. So many people are confused about GSA, what it is. All they hear is that they should get on a GSA schedule. And I'm sure you receive the same thing when you're out speaking with people, you're attending conferences and events. They're probably asking you, how do I get on a schedule? Is that something that happens with you frequently?
Oh yeah, every day. A schedule in normal terms would be a contract.
Okay.
And that's usually the first question is what is a GSA schedule? And it's basically interchangeable with the word contract. When you get on a GSA schedule, you are entering into a contract agreement with GSA under our terms and conditions and your capabilities to be a vendor for the customers that we support.
Okay.
And that process sometimes takes a little while. It's
right.
tedious, and we vet those customers pretty strictly and use various checklists and checks and balances to make sure that all of the vendors that are approved on GSA schedule are who they say they are. They're capable of delivering the things that they say they're capable of doing, and their rates are what we would consider most favorable pricing as their ceiling rate. So those are kind of some of the things that we do, when somebody's coming on schedule with us.
Okay. Now we have your slide presentation we can go through it and, you know, you could talk through some of the slides. I'll just click it and you let me know when to move on, and we can kind of flow like that. And then I'll ask questions throughout if that's okay with you.
Sure, sure. Do you care if we go back one slide and I get a
Sure.
plug on FAST 2020?
Let's go back. All right.
There you go. I definitely have to mention this. So we're in full throttle press right now for marketing and campaigning for FAST 2020.
Okay.
It's Federal Acquisition Service Training Conference. GSA historically would have the best and biggest training conferences, and you know, about a decade ago, those went away. Funding issues
okay.
and you know, spending and things of that nature. This will be the first year it comes back.
Wow.
We've got the Georgia World Congress Center. There's going to be thousands and thousands of attendees. We're looking to have a ton of training opportunities.
Wow.
We're
Nice.
doing CLPs for government employees. Those are continuous learning points that they need to maintain their certifications. And really, it's just going to be a huge event at Georgia World Congress Center on April 14th through the 16th of 2020. And it's super easy to register. It's free for government employees. And then I don't think it's super expensive for vendors or industry partners. So if you want to get in on that, go to www.gsa.gov/FAST, FAST.
No, that's excellent. That's a good, I'm glad you mentioned it because I when I looked at it, I thought it was something that had already passed. So no, this is great that you actually said that. Now the people that are attending, so for people like myself, if I was interested in pursuing a GSA schedule, would you say that this is the place to be?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Not only will you be able to network with other vendors and industry partners that are in your area,
Yep.
but you'll also be able to get direct contact with tons of federal contract representatives, contracting officers,
Sweet.
contracting specialists, program managers,
Okay.
from various bases around the country and even the world. We have people come in from Europe, contracting professionals come in from Europe for this, as well as every base that we have a customer service director responsible for. Will be, you know, getting government attendees. We're looking to get NASA out there, the space wings, as well as cyber command and things of that nature. So if there's anybody who wants to do business with any of those major customers, this is the place to come and get some face time.
Okay. No, excellent. And we'll make sure we'll have all that information in the show notes with links, attachments to it as well. So we appreciate that. All right. This slide.
That's just the agenda really for the
presentation
slides that come up. Yeah.
Okay.
I already kind of talked about this customer service directors. You can look up the customer service director for your area at gsa.gov/CSD. And then there will be basically, there's hundreds of us around the country. Okay. You want to reach out. You can also check with your small business association because they typically have a pretty good relationship with those representatives as well.
By the way, I looked up on your GSA website. It says CSDs provide assistance, resolve problems, and answer questions from GSA customers. They also host seminars on a variety of useful topics and are a valuable source of information on all GSA programs.
Yeah, we're like the jack of all trades person, you know. Okay. So usually we're a conduit to the end answer. You know, we don't know everything about everything, but we'll field questions about any topic.
Okay.
And get the answers. All right,
fair enough.
This really just sums up Federal Acquisition Service. There's two parts to GSA. There's the PBS is Public Building Service, and then there's Federal Acquisition Service. Those are our arms, our big arms. Okay. Federal Acquisition Service essentially is all the purchasing for the government. There's about $30 billion a year, a little bit more. I think it's $34 billion to be more specific in the last year that is purchased through GSA schedules that as a vendor, you will never see those solicitations for any of those dollars unless you're on a GSA schedule. GSA, like I said, as the federal procurement arm of the government, there's more and more regulation coming down for government entities to look first at GSA solutions before they go open market on a website like FedBiz Ops, or even calling a vendor directly. That's kind of gonna go from being the norm to being the exception as we continue to branch into more services and opportunities.
Now,
actually, even FedBiz Ops is going to be decommissioned on the 9th of November, and it'll go to beta.sam.gov, and GSA runs beta.sam.gov.
That should tell us some things, huh?
Yeah.
Now, something that you mentioned earlier, which I thought was interesting, you said GSA is now doing state and local contracts?
Yeah, so state and local is kind of a unique program that's been approved at the highest levels of the government. And basically, it's our procurement program to allow state and local agencies to use two schedules. Schedule 70, IT services and products, and Schedule 84, security, fire, military solutions. Those two schedules, state and local agencies can access at any time. And we're reaching out to more of them to ask them to use it as a first option, because we are trying to improve the relationships with the vendors and the state and local agencies to be able to provide them the best use of their local tax dollars. Because state and local agencies don't have as big a budgets as NASA or 45th Space Wing or Randolph Air Force Base, or 10th Air Force. So we're trying to help them, use their dollars more specifically. So they can access those at any time. And then in addition to that, we have disaster recovery program that's approved state program in which preparation for and recovery from a natural disaster, they can use almost all schedules as long as they're purchasing items that fall within that category. So that's obviously big for Florida being a hurricane state, California with the earthquakes and things of that nature, and the fires. So there's a lot of opportunity for people who have a product or they're trying to get into their local government. They could be the only schedule holder who offers a solution within that category, and they can go to their local procurement office and say, hey, listen, I have this solution. It's on GSA schedule. We can make this happen, and go that route. So as long as they fall within Schedule 84 and 70, or they have some sort of product that would be used in disaster recovery.
Taking notes. I like that. You're selling that GSA schedule, aren't you?
I think I'm supposed to do that, right?
I know. I don't know, man. That's nice. No, I like it. Hey, now I see why people want to get in the schedule. Okay, back to your slides. You want to touch on anything here?
Sure. Yeah. So we have assisted acquisition services. Assisted acquisition services is really our contracting office for big purchases that a local contracting office might not be able to handle. We'll help with that. We have personal property management. Obviously, we manage the fleet vehicles. And then GWACs, that's our government-wide acquisition contracts. Those are all of our IT vehicles, Alliant 2, 8A stars. Those fall into that category. And then Oasis is really our big professional services vehicle. It's very, very selective. The requirements to get on it are super tight, and they have an open enrollment period that's very, very small window. So keep an eye out for that.
Okay.
This is really just the basics desk reference. There's 19,000 contracts in place that how many vendors we have contracts with, right? So there's a lot of those are under IT 70. Our IDIQ fixed price contracts, they're competitively awarded. Some people who apply for GSA Schedule don't get an award, and typically that's because they either didn't fall within the strict parameters or their pricing wasn't comparable in our own market research. So that's kind of tough, but we do have about 80% of our vendors are small business. So if you're a small business and you want to get in on something that is kind of a conduit to being a solution for government spending, then GSA is usually the first place they look to award to small business.
Now, you said the OASIS, there's a small window for the open enrollment period. What about the other schedules, like the ones that we have on the screen?
That's a great question. So all of these are a continuous open enrollment, and
Okay.
you can go to
I can which site?
FedBiz Ops,
Okay.
multiple award schedule. Do you have that link?
Hold on. I think you have it in here.
I might.
No, it's not linked.
No. So when you go to FedBiz Ops, actually I'll pull up the link right now. I'll tell you. Yeah. I'll give you the solicitation number, and you can throw that, or you can search. Ready? It's 4747Q Sierra Mike Delta 20 Romeo 0001.
This is what we're looking for.
Yeah, click 71 or hold on. Click 99 professional services schedule. Let's click that one. And then scroll down, see where it says in changes, the solicitation is closed. I'm sorry, right in the middle there.
Oh, yep, right here.
Yeah, click that link there.
Okay.
All right, so this is the multiple award schedule, open solicitation, 24/7. People can apply and submit their e-offer. What you do is the first thing any vendor would want to do is determine what category that they perform best in or what their primary function is. Then they're going to click on the right-hand side, attachment 1, solicitation. And then that solicitation is the roadmap to get them on schedule. So that roadmap should probably be printed, and then all of the requirements that fall within that solicitation should be followed pretty strictly. That is for their general multiple award schedule contract. Then once they have that, they're also going to want to identify their category. There you go. So this is a huge document, and it's for the multiple award schedule. So now they won't have to maintain 3 different contracts on GSA for different areas of operation. They'll have one single contract that has multiple areas underneath that contract. So this will be the main preparation instructions.
Okay.
All right. And then in addition to that, to submit their e-offer, they'll want to identify on that FedBiz Ops solicitation the category in which they're going to submit an offer for. And they can submit an offer for multiple at the same time. I would recommend doing one at a time, just to keep it more streamlined for the contracting officer.
So when you say,
and actually here,
so when you say categories, that's what you're referring to, correct?
Sure. So eLibrary is a way to really narrow down what category your business or your product falls under. So this is an open website for search. You can search any parameters within the search category, and it'll take you to schedule numbers and special item numbers. So those special item numbers will be specific to whatever it is you're selling or services you're providing. So you'll use that to do your research, and then you'll go to the Fed Biz Ops solicitation. And then on the right-hand side, those attachments, number 2 through 13, those are the different categories. And you'll click on whichever category you've identified as your primary, and those will be supplemental to the requirements in attachment 1.
Okay. Now, remember, we're gonna for the people that are listening via podcast and not viewing the website, just be mindful of that. Be mindful.
They're kind of important, right?
Yeah, for the people that are listening in. So we just want to kind of talk some more about it and explain. But I mean, again, we're following you. I'm going to pull back up that slide presentation because I know that you went over a lot of this in the slides. I know we talked about, so you went over that. You go over this part in the slide presentations. So we will touch back on that when we get to it, only because I'll try and follow your slides in order. So here, as we're talking about preparing the offer.
Sure. Yeah, that's perfect. So the getting ready part, right? So there's a series of trainings that you have to complete that you can find instructions within the solicitation and on the GSA.gov website. There's instructions there. Then you're going to make sure you're registering within all of the required databases, SAM, the System for Award Management, your Small Business Association certifications and registration, as well as you making sure you have your appropriate NAICS codes. There's a list of registration requirements. Then you're going to read the solicitation in detail and complete all the forms that are within that solicitation and templates that are required. And that's really the assembling your information. So once you have it all together, then you're going to go to GSA.gov. Hang on, it's eOffer. All right. It's actually eoffer.gsa.gov. There you go. So your DUNS number, that's part of your registration, your SAM, and this gives links and phone numbers for questions if you have any questions on your System for Award Management registration, and also your DUNS number. You can go to the next slide. Backup one, I forgot about digital certificate. So in the military and in the government, everything is signed via digital certificate. You have to have a certified digital certificate, and that's typically like a plastic common access card with a chip on it, and that chip will be inserted into a CAC reader, and that CAC reader will give you the option or the ability to digitally sign your offer, digitally sign modifications, digitally sign PDF submissions, questions and answers. It basically gives you the ability to validate all of your documents.
Okay.
That has to be done prior to submitting your offer, because it'll ask you to digitally sign your submission.
Okay. Will we be able to make this slide presentation available?
Yeah, this is for public. Yep.
Great. Okay, perfect. All right, then, because what we'll do, that way everyone can have this and they can just follow the steps that are in here listed.
Perfect.
Okay, good. So we've assembled our offer. We've completed the forms. Talk to us about this price proposal template.
Okay, so your price proposal template, there will be a template, excuse me, and a guide within solicitation attachment 01.
Okay.
And that basically gives your ability to list your item, the price, your most favorable rate, a description of the item, the unit of measure, who your most favored customer was, the best discount you've offered, really just outlining your best sale,
Yep,
and that way, for every item you add to this price proposal template, the contracting officer will consider in your solicitation or in your offer on the solicitation. And when you get it awarded, those are the only items you're authorized to sell through GSA. So make sure if you have peripheral items for something you're adding a price, add those peripheral items as well so that you can have future sales. We run into a lot of times people will buy something and it has accessories. Well, if those accessories aren't listed on their schedule, they can't sell them under GSA schedules.
Wow.
Yeah. So you want to make sure you have everything listed in detail, down to the nut and bolt.
That makes sense. Yeah, if you need a pipe to connect your device to the system and you didn't put it on there, you can't sell it.
There you go.
All right. Okay, that makes sense. All right, this label category matrix, what is this all about?
Sure. So this is actually, I have some pretty intimate familiarity with this because I previously worked for a service-disabled veteran-owned small business, and I was the guy that worked on this. Basically, if you are offering a service that you want to be on GSA schedule for, so we have 00 Cork, which is our professional services schedule, and then Oasis, which is our multiple award IDIQ contract vehicle. If you're offering a service, and let's use the example here for program manager, and your company offers program managers, systems engineers, aerospace engineer, mechanical engineer, anything that you have a labor category title for, and you've executed a contract with past performance for that position, for that FTE, that full-time employee, you will list it in here as the matrix indicates. So you're saying that on this example, you can provide a program manager for a contract of 1 to 5 years who has 10 years experience. They their function, whatever their typical daily duties are listed in functional responsibility, and they have at least a bachelor's degree in computer science or engineering or information technology, right? So you're putting that information in there, and then you're listing the contract and past performance that indicates where you've hired that person before under a requirement, right? So that they know, okay, cool. Well, you hired for contract E12345, and you were the prime, and it was a time and materials contract or a firm fixed price contract, and the contract was 5 years, and we had this guy and we filled it. Our past performance was we had it full for 4 out of the 5 years at 100% occupancy.
Okay.
And then that way you're showing that you're capable of finding those people.
Okay.
Recently, I helped the contracting office execute a 4 FTE contract, small contract that equaled to $2+ million for acquisitions professionals. So if your company is in the professional services side of things and you hire acquisition professionals, you could be on a GSA schedule. And
what about human resources? Would that fall under?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. Anytime the government needs help doing something, they put it on a contract, right?
Yeah,
and things that are, historically heavy lifts, like when they do process changes or implement new standard operating procedures, or they're moving a base, or they're spending more money, or they're bringing on a tenant unit. Those all create the need for more people.
Right.
And those people tend to be HR, finance, acquisitions, engineers, program managers, project managers, those type of people. So if you're a professional services company, being on a GSA schedule definitely has its perks.
Now, you're saying in this particular labor category matrix, what if I used the person, but their function was not on a DoD contract, or was not on a federal contract, but on a state or local contract?
Oh, that's fine. It does. As
Okay.
a matter of fact, it doesn't even need to be on a state, local, or federal contract. It just has to be past performance. They just use these contracts because it helps justify your capability of supporting the military.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. All right. Assembling the offer, final documentation, subcontracting plan, tech proposal. Now, what's previous cancellation or rejection letters?
Okay, so say you applied for a GSA schedule and you had a critical element missing from your application and it gets rejected, you'll get a letter. Hey, sorry, you didn't get it. So when you reapply for a schedule, they want that rejection letter in the application so that they know what to look for to make sure you fixed it.
Oh, that's good. Actually, I think that's a great practice. That's a great practice.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, no sense in rejecting the same thing twice.
And our industry, no, it's true. In construction, we do red line drawings where you red line the areas that we're revisiting. So that makes sense.
Absolutely.
I think it's a great. Now, this is final documentation. One of the things that I did note, it says over 2 years of corporate experience, greater than 1 year, but less than 2 years of corporate experience. So talk to me about. I know originally the original document said you'd have to be 2 years in a business to apply for GSA schedule, or is that
sure?
Does that work?
Okay, so or you meet the quote minimum requirement, right? You have more than 2 years of experience doing whatever it is that you do, right?
Okay.
If you don't have 2 years experience, then you're going to have to. The contracting officer looks at your package more strictly than if you were of 2 years experience, because they are putting their name on it, saying that although you didn't have 2 years experience, they think that you're capable of performing at a rate in which the DoD needs.
Okay.
Yeah, and then if you have less than 2 years experience, they're going to want your angel investors. And whoever your investors are, they're going to want them to be on board with it to make sure that you're capable of performing and holding accountable. Yep.
That makes sense.
And typically less than a year experience or that 1 to 2 years is only going to apply for IT 70 schedule, because that's the only schedule that they really consider anything less than 2 years, because technology changes so fast.
Yeah, no, if you wait 2 years,
right?
No,
yeah, there might exactly. So they'll make adjustments or considerations specifically for that.
Okay.
Yep.
Here on the screen, we see it says commercial sales practice matrix. Can you explain this?
Absolutely. So this is really you showing who your customers are historically and what discounts or pricing that you've offered those customers, right? So, commercial end users, they might get a 16 on this form. It says commercial end users, 16% standard discount pricing policy, right? So all your sales guys know when they're selling nuts and bolts that on the end invoice, they can't offer a discount any more than 16%, because that's your predetermined best discount before you go in the red, right?
Right.
So that's really where that comes from. Well, the reason why a 16% discount on here is better than your, say, state and local discount, because really your initial invoice for state and local as a government will probably be less than whatever your commercial invoice would be, because you're trying to hook them up
Yeah.
to gain the business, right? So, you know, this is kind of a general rule of thumb. When you if you've sold to NASA, you want to give them a 15% discount because NASA's cool. And the Air Force typically will get a 10% discount. And then you could say GSA discount would be 20%. So you're showing that GSA has your most favorable rate.
Okay.
It's the best rate you've ever sold it to anybody for.
I see that, and I'm like, man, GSA.
Yeah.
So you guys,
Yeah.
you're big on that, getting the best rate, huh?
Well, because so the idea is most of the stuff that people are buying through GSA is in significant quantity, right? So we're looking for that quantity discount, right? So minimum 16%, because that's what you're giving to commercial end users when they're buying a ton of stuff, right? And we want it better than that, because when our customers go to buy something, we have already told them you will get the best rate if you go through GSA, because we pre-negotiated it so that they buy through GSA vendor versus going to Office Depot and buying that
Right, the same item somewhere else. You know,
item, right?
it's interesting. I was on the call with one of my students beforehand, and he said, "What if you found that happen? Like, what? So, what if the case where someone offered on their website a more competitive rate than on the schedule? What happens
That's a great.
in that case?"
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's not really like a GSA police running around and checking people's best rate all the time. However, if it comes up and a customer recognizes that your GSA rate quote was higher than what they offer right now on another website,
right,
then that business would then have to submit a modification request to their GSA contracting officer to have the rate adjusted on their GSA schedule, and they wouldn't be able to sell it at the rate on their current GSA schedule because it's out of compliance.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if someone finds that, I guess we should just report it to GSA.
Sure. Yeah, and they'll call me, and I've had a few instances where somebody requested a quote, and they got the quote, and they're like, yeah, but it's $3 more per item or per unit in your quote than is shown on GSA, and the vendor replied, sorry, since our GSA schedule, the price has gone up because it costs more for us to make.
Right.
So then I have to call the vendor and say, hey, I'm sorry, it went up. You're supposed to modify your contract.
Mhm.
You're maintaining your contract and update your
Right.
pricing. Otherwise, it's whatever's advertised on GSA Advantage or through eBuy. And they had to go ahead and honor that rate. So.
No, that's fair. What is the difference between GSA Advantage and eBuy, since you brought that up?
So that's a great question. So GSA Advantage is like the GSA equivalent to Amazon. It's hundreds and thousands of products. Typically not services on Advantage, but products for sure.
Okay.
And those products are going to be listed with all the vendors that are approved vendors for that NSN. So if you go to GSAadvantage.gov, then you can search for any product. And really it's a public website, so anybody can go to it, but you can't buy anything unless you're you're approved purchaser, and you can't post anything unless you're a GSA vendor, right? So that's GSA Advantage. GSA eBuy is really it's like eBay, right? So it's our solicitation website. So if I was to let's use recently I helped post a request for quote for relocation services. So one of the rescue squadrons on base is doing a 5,000 square foot remodel, and they need to move all their furniture and items into a temporary facility. So I helped them go to GSA eBuy. We posted an RFQ with all the specs and the supporting attachments, and then all vendors who are approved under the special item number that we posted it under, I think it was 7123 is the special item number. There was 131 vendors.
Okay.
I emailed all 131 vendors, and they could pull it up and see it in their eBuy. If they weren't on that SIN, they wouldn't be able to see it. So only those 131 vendors could see that bid, and then they were able to submit a proposal.
Okay.
There you go. So www.ebuy.gsa.gov is the solicitation website. So you would sign in as a contractor, and you're not going to be able to get in here unless you're an approved contractor. So this isn't like FBO where you can see solicitations to the public, because these are only qualified for GSA buyers.
Okay.
But GSA Advantage, you could search anything. If you're in here now, we use picnic table as a good example. So you can search picnic table, and when you click go, you might have been on the website. You got to reload the website. It might not let you go to it.
Go ahead. Keep talking through.
Yeah, so if you search picnic table on GSA Advantage, you're going to get thousands of results, right? Because every vendor that sells picnic tables. Then you can narrow it down 8 feet. Aluminum. It might not work.
Why? What do you think it's happening?
It might have a conflict. I've never really tried it on not a government approved computer, so it may not be available for public use there.
All right, so you search picnic table, you can find thousands of picnic tables. Okay.
Right, and then it gives you a narrow down option where you can here we go. Yeah, so it is eligible. And then in search within results, see right there, if you go there and even you can type in search within results, type 8 feet, and then it'll narrow down those thousands of items to only the picnic tables that are 8 feet. And then you can add parameters and take them away just by clicking on the word that you added. So it's pretty user friendly. You can go ahead and add aluminum. All right. And then if you look where it says criteria under search results, see how you have picnic table, 8 feet aluminum?
Yep.
If you click on any one of those words, it'll eliminate it from the search.
Gotcha.
And you can add as many as you want. So see how we narrowed it down kind of to a smaller pool?
Right.
You can narrow it down all the way to where there's no items, and then click on one of the words and it'll remove that from you. Super user friendly.
Okay.
But let's go ahead and click on picnic table, 8 feet aluminum. Right there. No, click on the item, the first one there. Yeah. So if you click on the item, this item is sold by 3 separate vendors, right? So we're really 2. Wrigglesworth Enterprises, they have 2 contracts because they also have a blanket purchase agreement, which is another way the military and DoD saves money is they write these blanket purchase agreements where they'll only have a handful of select vendors in the BPA, and then those BPAs are mandated by specific units. So if it's mandated and there's only 4 vendors, you've reduced your competition significantly.
Right.
So you're going to offer a better rate to be able to win those. So you can, and even vendors can go on here and research their competition, right? So you'll be able to see what everybody else is offering as their ceiling rate.
Right.
They can always charge less, but they can't charge more than what their rate is listed here. So this is kind of one of those things that helps people. If you look also in socio in the 4th column from the left, right in the middle there, So that's socioeconomic status, right? So the GSA is huge on small business, but we also recognize service disabled veteran, veteran-owned, women-owned small business, 8A, small disadvantageous business.
Okay.
You know, the whole 9 yards. So that customers who have requirements to buy from different categories, because every DoD agency has a requirement for each of those socioeconomic categories that they have to meet, they can go on here and pick vendors that meet those criteria in order to purchase from them. So it's definitely a good way to advertise yourself.
Okay. No, nice. All right. Now let's go back to, we're submitting the offer. And so now we're looking at, here's my award process. So we we submitted it to this particular site. And again, they can follow along. It's eoffer.gsa.gov, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And then let's talk a little bit about the award process and how that works and what does that look like?
Okay. So once you submit your e-offer, there's a group of contracting officers that GSA has hired. They're typically prior military or DoD civilian contracting officers or contracting specialists that we have who are responsible for different national accounts, right? So different categories. We have ones that only work in IT, only work in furniture, only work in human resources, only work in professional services. So we have categories of contracting officers. And when your offer goes in, they get a notification. They open it up and go through a series of checklists and determine whether or not, first, that you have all the items required. If you have all the items required, then they'll go in a little bit deeper and they'll start validating those items, right? So they're doing the responsibility check. They're making sure that the items and past performance that you've listed within that contract are true and accurate based on their research. If anything is skewed or you're missing a document, typically they'll email you and say, hey, listen, you're missing line 47 on page 8. You know, can you fix that and send it back? Because they don't want to kick it back and waste both of your time. But sometimes when they're busy, they'll just deny, and they kick it back.
Right.
You know, so that's where the review and clarifications part comes in and the responsibility check. Then once they've done that, they're going to do their own price analysis. So they're going to take your pricing worksheet that you submitted and they're going to do their own market research based on the thousands of other contracts they've already approved.
Right.
And if you're way out of the ballpark, they're going to come back and say, hey, sorry, you're going to have to fix these. Then it goes into negotiations, right? Like, hey, your best price is $20 for that box of pens.
Uh-huh. We
found that the best market rate is $18. And then you go, well, we could probably do it for $18.50. You say, okay, well, how about $8.25, right? In the back and forth negotiations.
So you really do that? I made a note of that. That you guys really do go back and forth on those pricing, huh?
Yeah. And usually it's, as long as it's within the independent government cost estimate parameters, they're not going to really try to nickel and dime you.
Right.
You know, I was just giving an over exaggerated example there.
But I actually made that note on one of your questions when it says final tips for success. It said be prepared to negotiate. So I had that as a question specifically. Yeah,
absolutely. You want, I mean, there you go. Be prepared. Know your market. That's huge. A lot of people, they kind of have a small snippet or a piece of the pie of their market, but they don't really know it in depth. Use GSA eLibrary and find comparable vendors that sell the same stuff you sell and use that as your litmus test on where you're at.
Right. No, that makes sense. Okay. I know we're at the hour mark. Let's talk about a couple things that you've got the remaining 10 slides. Can you explain GWAC?
Sure. So GWAC is the government terminology that covers really total IT solutions, right? So GWAC is government-wide acquisition contract. They are typically established to fall within the OMB requirement. If you are a vendor and you have not read M-19-13, is the Office of Management and Budget directive to utilize GWACs liberally and multiple award contracts like OASIS and BMO, or like OASIS for the IDIQ. So that's our spend under management requirements. I think it's 26 pages. It's not a short read, but it basically outlines how the government is supposed to spend their money and fall within spend under management tiers. GSA does a huge effort towards meeting those tiers. Tier 0 or unmanaged would be your open market contracts, just putting it out on FBO, right?
Okay.
They want to avoid those as much as possible because they don't have as strict terms and conditions. They don't have as strict pricing. Change orders can be submitted at random, and you can take something that may have been a $10 million contract, and before you know it, after 5 years, you're looking at 20 million,
Right.
and you
Yeah.
doubled because they don't have as strict requirement, and there's no strategy. Tier 1, those are going to be your agency-wide strategies. NETCENTS is the example here. On November 8th, that's going away. That'll be replaced by a GSA vehicle called 2GIT, 2GIT, and that second generation information technology. I believe that's going to fall under a higher level tier than NETCENTS 2 would, but that's an IT mandated contract. So what happens is anytime, let's use network infrastructure. So there was a set of houses on base that required secure network infrastructure because of the people who the military puts in those houses. That is a mandated NETCENTS 2 requirement. So if you have an IT contract, you probably want to get on 2GIT under GSA Solutions, because the government has, or the Air Force specifically, has to look at 2GIT first before any other option as a mandate.
Now, I've never heard of NETCENTS 2 before. What is NETCENTS 2?
So that was not a GSA vehicle.
Okay.
It was an agency-wide strategy to kind of pipeline IT infrastructure procurements, so that, because there's thousands of IT vendors, right?
Oh, sure.
So they created NETCENTS 2, and then they pared it down to only a select number of vendors so that their procurement process could happen faster.
But you said it's going away from November 8th.
Yeah, November 8th, it's gone. So
Okay.
no, and they'll have a year for anything that was approved or executed before it goes away. They'll have a year to complete that work. So most contracting officers are waiting until 2GIT goes into play, which would be next week, and then they'll start executing under that GSA vehicle.
Now, 2GIT, how would a vendor get on the 2GIT contract?
Actually, I just saw an advertisement. If you still have that link up for GSA Advantage.
Okay, I want GSA Advantage.
All right. Yeah. So it was right there. There it goes. Coming soon. 2GIT. Right. So you can click on that, and it's going to give you the general information that you need to know. They basically use your GSA experience to determine whether or not meet the criteria in a point value system to qualify for these special programs.
Gotcha. Now, would that apply to the 8A Stars 3 contract that's coming out?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So 8A Stars, Alliant, Oasis, To Get, Connections. There's quite a few GSA contract vehicles. And actually, not to segue out of something crazy, but since you're mentioning these, you can use Acquisition Gateway as a vendor to kind of find out what vehicles are out there, not just under GSA. This is just general information you have a link open a tab open at the top there.
Okay. All right. I want to show you a list of contracts.
Oh yeah, there you go. So these are the GWACs, right? So there are IT contract vehicles that are customized really for the government to streamline IT procurement. So 8A Stars, you're an 8A IT vendor, you definitely want to get on this. They're super easy acquisitions for our customers, and industry partners love it because they happen quickly, and they can be awarded, with very little, pushback or vendor issues. Alliant 2 and Vets 2, both really cool GWACs that, categorize things a little bit differently from an industry partner perspective. I think, if you're a veteran owner, disabled veteran owned small business, Vets 2 is definitely a way to go and get out there in front of GSA customers.
Now, let's go back. You were saying I have a tab open. Which one?
Yeah, if you on your tabs for Acquisition Gateway, almost the fourth one from the right there.
This one?
There you go.
Okay.
Yep. So hallways.cap.gsa.gov. This is our Acquisition Gateway. I think you have to register as a vendor to create an account, and it really is an extensive document library with, it's good for all acquisition professionals. So it's a good way to kind of determine whether or not you're capable of meeting all the special contract vehicle options. So
okay.
I definitely suggest clicking around there. And at the top, tools, resources, and tutorials, those links at the top, that's really kind of where you want to start in your research to, determine whether or not you're competitive.
Okay. No, that's good information. Now, so we were talking about the spend under management. That's the way in which, like you said, that's the way that they're supposed to actually look first to spend the dollars within the contracts, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. And that was OMB memo M-19-13.
Yes, and that came out March 2019.
Okay. So let's talk about this. What is this MAS Consolidation?
The MAS Consolidation, that's the multiple award schedule consolidation. I mentioned a little bit earlier that if you used to have products in 3 different areas, you would have 3 different contracts. This is the solution to eliminating that. We've identified redundancies, the same item descriptions under multiple SINs, and really just pared everything down and created multiple award schedule consolidation. And the cool thing about the MAS consolidation is everybody who applies now moving forward will be only under this. Anybody who currently has a contract, they'll be in phase 2 and 3, rolled over into the new MAS consolidation under the terms and conditions associated with this, and take all of their contracts and put it under one single contract.
Is that like when you do with your phone contacts, when you merge them?
Yeah, right. Yeah. So they want to make sure that it's less paperwork and less lift for the vendors, so that there's no problems from their end performing and meeting their requirements.
Okay. All right. I just thought of a point that we didn't mention that I remember reading in your slides. The time frame for when you submit to your GSA schedule, when you submit, the contracting officer reviews it. I think on your slide it said about 110 days, 120 days.
Yeah, so 120 days is kind of the mark on the wall, you know, on the calendar that you want to aim for. Sometimes it could take 9 or 12 months, depending upon a variety of factors that are almost unforeseen. You know, you want to make sure that you're tracking your process as best as possible, and responding immediately to the contracting officer's requests, and that'll speed it up. But 120 days is doable for sure.
Now, what about when they have on there? I've seen on GSA schedules, but they don't have your category. What do they call that?
So if they don't have what you are selling, and you may have an item that is revolutionary, right? Or a service that, you know, you think the government could use that they don't already have, you can recommend a new category to your contracting officer, and they can add it to a GSA schedule. I don't know anybody. I don't know anyone personally who's ever done that. But I know that it's possible because we have SINs within eLibrary. You find them in various categories where it says recommend new product or service.
I've seen it, and I don't have it in front of me. I didn't bring that, but I've seen it. It's almost like on our side, it'd be like almost like an unsolicited proposal type thing.
Exactly. You know, you're kind of reaching out on a limb and saying, hey, you know, I got this really cool thing. I think the military could use it.
Okay.
You know.
Okay.
The variable to that is GSA is all 100% commercially obtainable products. So it's not like there is R&D. We do some R&D stuff, especially for like Air Force Research Laboratory, but you can't have a contract, firm fixed price contract on something that you haven't created yet and made it commercially available.
So it can't be an invention.
Right. Exactly.
Gotcha.
Exactly.
That's a very good point. I think that would answer some questions to folks that I had out there. Okay. No, that's great. Well, I have up here your slide for your conference at the end.
Sure. Yeah. FAST 2020.
Yeah. You want to go ahead and plug it and then close out?
Yeah. I'll love to plug it. April 16th to 17th. It's in Atlanta, Georgia at the Georgia World Congress Center. You can register at www.gsa.gov/FAST, FAST. It's the theme is advancing acquisition. GSA wants to get in the forefront of acquisition strategy and capability, and we're going to focus on a ton of training opportunities, and there's going to be tons of networking and meeting people who actually spend the dollars that businesses want to get. So
are you going to be there, Shaun?
I will. I've even volunteered to help teach a training class if they'll let me. But I mean, we have subject matter experts and national account managers for GSA. It's in our region. Region 4 is the Southeast region, and we tend, from a GSA perspective, we tend to have higher volume than a lot of other regions, just because of the customers we have in our area. So we have a ton of subject matter experts from our area who will be there, shaking hands, making connections, teaching classes, and really just getting industry partners connected with customers who spend the money.
No, I think that's wonderful. I'll definitely make sure Maria puts us on the list to attend. And Atlanta's close, so that's right up the road.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, that's right up the road. No, it's not too bad.
It's like an hour and 40-minute flight from Miami.
Oh yeah. No, it's easy. It's easy peasy. Well, I actually, sometimes I like to just drive, just because of the road and
Okay. A little
So,
I-75.
yeah. I mean, I went to school at University of Florida, so I mean,
Oh, right on.
I'll
There you
pass
go.
right through, stop by, say some
Yeah.
people, and then I'll go from there. Shaun, listen, I thank you for reaching out. I know that it was somewhat of an undertaking to get on the show today, so I do appreciate you reaching out to the powers above and asking permission. I know
Sure.
it's not as straightforward as some other people have it, where they can just elect to come on to our show and share the information. Definitely. So to close out, everyone out there, because I don't want them all just to clamor onto Shaun and his information. You said there's CSDs all over the country that they can talk to about specifics in terms of getting on GSA schedule, correct? So
Absolutely.
reach
And
out to.
actually,
Go ahead.
if you go back a few slides, there's a point of contact. There you go. Marsharia Jesse. She is the business and industry specialist for Region 4. So if you're in the Southeast, you can contact her at marsharia.jesse@gsa.gov. That's marcheria.jesse@gsa.gov. And she will happily get you any information that you need, or put you in touch with the customer service director that is closest to you.
Okay. No, I appreciate that very much. Hey, Shaun, listen, thanks so much for coming on today. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Talk to you soon. Disclaimer: the information contained within this podcast can change, and all those interested in GSA programs should reference the information at www.gsa.gov for the most up-to-date and accurate information. Shaun Hartman's appearance does not constitute an endorsement of GovCon services by GSA.